So let me ask you a couple questions here. So, I mean, you're a full-time guide. You've given up your day job to do this. You know, fishing. How many days a year?
You know, I forgot to mention that. After 17 years in the golf business, have left to pursue stripersnatcher.com full time. So the guide service is full time. My availability has gone way up. So now I'm able to focus on being a source of information in the fishing world. So yeah, it's been interesting. So last year I was out 250 days, I believe.
250 days.
Yeah,
Wow.
and every day is different. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why they call it fishing, not catching.
Yeah, exactly.
It's every day's different, and so your expectations have got to stay in check. And you know that goes back to being confident. You know, someone asked me how important is it to be confident, and what I've noticed is when you're confident, you're going to fish slower. And sometimes that's all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
You know, if you're confident in what you're throwing and where you're at and what you're doing, it's
Well, you're
a
not
lot less
retying-
stressful.
You're not retying baits. You're not running from one side of the lake to the other. You're spending the time focusing on where the fish are and
Yeah.
what they're telling you.
And I'll tell you, that's another thing. Someone that's not confident, they're not going to have much gas at the end of the day in that boat.
Yeah. Their costs are going to go up.
Yeah, their costs are going to go through the roof. But
So I guess when you have a guide trip out here, you know, how, let's say I'm a client, I'm looking to go out fishing, you know, how far in advance do I need to book? You know, how do I get in contact with you for your availability?
well, ideally, about a week in advance would be good. Since I'm doing this full time now, my availability's gotten a lot better, but a week in advance is generally about all you need.
Yeah.
You know, every once in a while I get a call, hey, I want to go out right now. And it's, well, what I recommend right off top is fish on weekdays.
Weekdays?
And the reason I like that is because even though Game and Fish does a good job with the no wake buoy placement, there's a lot of knuckleheads that keep our sheriffs in business by them blowing the buoys. And that goes back to being too loud. Even though they're not fishing, they're just boating too loud. And loud boating is not good for netting bait. It's not good for a moving target when you're trying to catch stripers. So
you notice a difference in size and quantity just from, you know, the weekend angler versus doing midweek?
yeah, I mean, a big fish is a smart fish, and I mean, it's just tough to enjoy it when there's a lot of knuckleheads out. So right off top, I think that the enjoyance factor will go up on a weekday trip. You know, fishing is fishing. There's a lot of campers on Pleasant where I like to fish. There's a lot of bank fishermen. There's a lot of small boats, so it's difficult to fish shallow water structure when there's a bank fisherman around. You know, not that there's anything against them. Which will bring me to my next point. One of the topics is where can I go to bank fish on Lake Pleasant? And I can already tell you right now, you almost need a four-wheel drive.
Oh, yeah.
The only other thing I could say is to drive to Castle Creek boat ramp on Castle Hot Springs Road and just start walking north, beating the banks. What people don't realize is there's a lot of abnormalities in depth over there on that west bank that you can walk up and down. And at the same time, you can be entertained by the guys on the east bank jumping off a cliff that's 50 feet tall into 40 foot of water. So
So if I'm looking at a map, you know, what do you mean by abnormalities? You know, if I'm trying to, you know, if I can only fish a couple hundred yards in a day because I'm limited, what should I look for on the map to kind of, you know, show me a good bank fishing spot?
Well, one of the structures that most people aren't aware of in the desert impoundments are points or any kind of transition in depth. The word transition is my new favorite word. A transition in depth is something that those fish will key to because there's not a lot of structure out there, not enough to facilitate the fish that we have, in my opinion. So when you're walking down that bank quietly, you can take, you know, what I call the 9mm swim bait round, which is a 3.5 paddle tail on a 1/4 ounce head, 10-pound line, you know, light tackle. And you know, you're using a universal bait. You can let it drop, you can reel it straight in, and you're able to pick those fish off that are focusing on those transition spots. And you can walk around those rocky bank edges all the way to the back, and it's pretty much what you've got to deal with. Another thing that is there that most people don't know, unless you're a net thrower, is cocklebur grass.
What's, I've heard you say that. What is cocklebur grass?
Well, some people say cocklebur, but I'm from the south, so I'm going to say cocklebur grass. It's, it's kind of like a cactus mixed with a weed. It's real coarse and it lasts forever. When the water level's down during the summer, the north part of the lake will grow very fast, and when the water covers it, it's just a vegetation that's extremely hardy here, especially in Pleasant. And those fish will lay down in that, and you can see that. And those fish will wait for something to come by, and then when opportunity knocks, they'll just jump out and bust it there. So I like to darken all my terminal tackle, just so they can't have line of sight on it. And a good observation would be go to a clear area of Lake Pleasant, which for me would be Scorpion Bay.
Yeah.
You can see striper swimming around. You can take an anchovy on a drop shot rig, and first thing people ask me is why I use a drop shot rig. The reason I use a drop shot rig is so I can have taut line between the hook and myself. If you're using a split shot or a Carolina rig, that fish will take your bait before you even know what hit you. So what I like to practice, and this is something I just started, I coat all the brass parts, the hook, the top, the brass part of the drop shot weight. I black all that out so they don't have good line of sight on it. And another thing I'll do is I will embed that hook in whatever bait I'm using, just so they can't see it. Because you'd be surprised. I dropped a GoPro in the water in this area, and you'd be surprised at how many fish will go full speed to that bait and stop a half an inch from that bait, look at it, maybe do a lap around it, and then turn around. And those fish are conditioned to see that. They are aware of the drop rate of a free-falling piece of chum,
or French fry,
or French fry, or whatever they eat over there. God, they're a garbage disposal over there with fins over there. So, one of the real meticulous things that you could do if you're not getting those bites and you see those fish is practice just making your lure a little bit more stealth, your setup, especially when you're anchovy fishing, especially at night, because if you've got your lights in the water, it's really going to exploit the shiny composition of your terminal tackle. So you're going to want to black that out. And then I do the polar opposite with my artificial stuff. I liven them. Unfortunately, I've dipped my coffee table pink and purple and black and all that stuff, but it's okay. It's character. I'm bringing the 70s back to the coffee table.
That's right.
But basically, I like to brighten my artificial stuff, and I like to darken my terminal tackle. So that's just one of my goofy niches that you'll pick up on when you're on my boat. And the other thing that I like to talk about is line diameter. I took a bass fisherman out, which I remember taking bass fishermen out, those tournament anglers on my boat. They all have one thing in common. They throw line that's too big. I can see it at night. And so I know a fish can see it. And
they're all swinging for the fence.
They're swinging for the fence.
Lake record.
Yeah, which, when you're a net tosser, one of the things, the reason I like to throw my net is so you can find out exactly what that they're chasing. This time last year, the average threadfin shad in Lake Pleasant was 4 inches long. My theory, because of all the components from the record monsoons that put all the plankton in the water, the overabundance has caused a spike in size. Those threadfin shad are 6 inches, sometimes 6.5 on average.
Wow.
So that throws a whole new component in the game. Those fish do not have to eat as much as they used to. A threadfin of that size, I imagine, is pretty logical with the components that are going on. That's an older bait. So when you net something that size, you're going to want to match that with an artificial bait. And this time last year, I was throwing the 3.5-inch paddle tail swim bait or whatever matches that profile. Now, to match that, you're going to have to increase the profile displacement in the water. So I started a new arts and crafts section where I'm messing with skirts now. I'm throwing a skirted swim bait. So when you're throwing something with a bigger profile that you can match the color to, which those threadfin have a yellowtail, purplish, bluish, you know, a bright rainbow colored profile. You can match that with these skirts and with these little dippers like what Matt Shura has had success with. It's interesting because we all throw a very similar size, and you just have to make minor adjustments depending on where you're at. But basically, what's really paid off is to increase the size. The area I fish in the south wind is going to be stained because the wind is going to shift that water that above the thermocline. It's going to be rich in algae. There's going to be a lot of plankton there. It's going to be darkish green. That's what you're looking for. And when you're fishing that shallow, I like for a fish to have line of sight on when I'm throwing, especially because there's a lot of cocklebur grass down there, and I know those fish are in there. And for them to have line of sight on a weighted skirted swim bait coming by, it's better for them to see it than not. So I'm going to throw something that's extremely vibrant, which just goes back to just tailoring your profile. That's why throwing that net's so important.
So do you have pictures of these arts and crafts? I mean, this sounds kind of...
I do, yeah, I do. If for those that don't know, Vince and I started our own club just because we wanted to be a source of information. That's the whole reason I became a guide. If you're a Facebook follower, you can go to the Arizona Fishing Club. We do pro tips almost hourly because I don't have anything else going on.
Live fishing pictures of what we're catching.
Exactly.
Size of fish, what baits we're throwing.
Exactly. So it's just a way to have a direct access to the source, And my website, stripersnatcher.com. I just got a brand new website that's about to launch, and it's going to have video application. I'm really trying to make a push into the production of videos and stuff, just so you can be more informed. And that's what it's all about. It's being more selfless. Yeah. That's the kind of the leaf that I'm trying to turn here.
Well, it's really educating the rest of the world. I mean, especially Arizona is known for being a tough fishery, and sharing that kind of knowledge with people. I mean, I know people that fished all their lives, moved out here to Arizona, and they gave up fishing because it was too difficult until you show them what to do.
Yes. I will. Yeah, that was the first thing we added. Yeah. So I did a little bit of research for those that don't know. When I first became a guide, I was nighttime fishing only, and I wanted to be the guy that had the best. I wanted something different. So I had a company called underwaterfishlight.com build me a custom. I mean, they have it in stock, but it's just definitely something you don't see. It's a 110 volt powered HID metal halide bulb, which is basically a stadium light. And I put a GoPro camera in the water, 50 feet down, and recorded just what goes on down there. And what we saw were about, I don't know, 500-600 fish.
Yeah.
I like
the Discovery Channel, like something you see on those things where there's tuna. There's tuna.
Yeah, it looked like downtown Tokyo during happy hour. It was like how do they not hit each other? It's completely crazy. So anyway, so once I kind of I wanted to get away from that because people were thinking, well, the only reason he catches 17,000 fish a year is because of that light system. Well, I got out of it just to do some daytime ops and be more of a source for daytime fishing because that's what people have time for. But we also do night trips now. Right now my guide trips are from 5 to 9, so it's a hybrid trip.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to come back with James Guggenauer. He's going to give us a little bit of Rim County fishing report. So we're looking forward to that as always. So when we come back, we'll be listening to him, see what he's got to say. So we'll see you guys in a little bit.